Scuderia Ferrari is still aiming for the World Constructors Championship. This is one of the few positive aspects for the Italian side at the end of round 21 of the season, the Brazilian Grand Prix, which was held last weekend at the 4.309-kilometer Autodromo Jose Carlos Pace in Sao Paulo. In Formula One, as long as mathematics does not rule it out, it is definitely right to keep pushing to sustain one's goals and aspirations. Regardless of the outcome of the Constructors' Championship, it is worth pointing out that if Ferrari still believes in the title and Max Verstappen has already secured the Drivers' Championship, it is also due to the performances of an overrated driver or maybe simply a still inexperienced driver. We are clearly talking about Lando Norris, who certainly does not lack talent, but has appeared unprepared in the battle for the world title. This shows the wide gap between being able to win and having to win beyond pure driving skill. These are the elements emerging in the competitive 2024 Formula One season. The body language of the British driver from McLaren has completely changed since the car he has at his disposal offered him the chance to constantly compete for race victories and therefore the Formula One title. Max Verstappen, in addition to being a great driver, has slowly dismantled his friend's certainties. The Dutch driver has done this with sometimes aggressive and sublime driving, as shown last Sunday in the Brazilian Grand Prix. After the debacle in Interlagos, the McLaren driver is almost certainly not going to win the Drivers' Championship. A divine miracle or a sudden new technical crisis at Red Bull would be needed. But if he truly nurtures the ambition to become a Formula One world champion in the future, he must undoubtedly immediately recover from a mental point of view, even if the blow in Brazil was a true knockout punch. In some ways, this season is very similar to the 1995 championship, when seven-time world champion Michael Schumacher demolished on and off the track Briton Damon Hill. This was despite Williams having the best F1 car on the grid. That setback helped the Englishman a lot, who managed to fulfill his dream the following year by winning his first and only world title. For McLaren, success over Ferrari in this final part of the season therefore depends on synergy between its drivers. Lando Norris must send a signal to himself, his rivals, and his team, which continues to lead the constructors' standings ahead of the Las Vegas Grand Prix with 3 rounds until the end of the championship. On paper, the round in Ayrton Senna's home country should have been the best stage to extend the lead over the competition, especially against Ferrari. Yet the Maranello team managed to limit the damage thanks to Charles Leclerc, while Oscar Piastri was also truly disappointing, especially in Sunday's race. In the final 3 rounds of the 2024 Formula One campaign, the British team led by Andrea Stella needs the best version of its drivers, a factor from which the team cannot deviate if it wants to secure its title. With the exception of the Hungarian Grand Prix, McLaren's pair of drivers has not been able to maximize the potential of the MCL 38 single-seater. Ferrari, unlike the British rivals, has never truly been in the fight for the driver's title. What could superficially be seen as a negative factor has instead helped set aside harmful individualism. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, except for sporadic exceptions, have sacrificed their personal ambitions in order to contribute to the ultimate goal of the historic Italian team, namely to win the constructors' title again after 16 years. This is a mission whose significance has been understood by the 2 Ferrari drivers, who, despite it not being counted as a personal success, would mark them in the legendary history of the Maranello team. Conversely, within the English team, it seems that synergy between the F1 drivers is minimal. In the Saturday short event, Oscar Piastri yielded the sprint race lead in the final stages, almost as if to emphasize his superiority and gentle concession in favor of his McLaren teammate. This is the current picture of the situation. However, considering that even the team no longer seems to believe in Lando Norris's title chances after how the Brazilian Grand Prix unfolded, something might shift in the internal dynamics. The Australian could feel free to race without any subordination to his teammate, as only the sum of points, not the final driver standings, would matter. Ferrari will attempt to capitalize on this scenario where McLaren could be destabilized. The next championship round is scheduled to take place at the 6.2-kilometer Las Vegas Strip Circuit in Nevada, USA, and according to what Ferrari team principal Frederic Vasseur himself has claimed after the Brazilian Grand Prix, the upcoming round should favor the Reds. With the SF23 last year, Charles Leclerc contested the victory in the Las Vegas Grand Prix against the Red Bull cars, embellishing his performance with an overtake on Sergio Perez in the final moments of the race. Conversely, Lando Norris delivered a performance to forget, ending early after losing control of his McLaren MCL 60. The British driver is called upon to react to fuel his team's ambitions and begin rebuilding that essential self-confidence, which is needed to renew his bid for the driver's title in 2025. Meanwhile, Ferrari still hopes to snatch the title from its rival team in the coming month. With the result in the Brazilian Grand Prix, the gap between Ferrari and McLaren in the constructors' standings widened from -29 to -36, but the competition remains open. Charles Leclerc, despite the difficulties, expressed optimism for the upcoming races, emphasizing the importance of the race in Las Vegas. The next key goal for Ferrari is therefore the Las Vegas Grand Prix. In 2023, Ferrari surprised the racing world by challenging the dominant Red Bull team, securing pole position and second place in the race. Charles Leclerc had clinched these results with an impressive last-lap overtake on Sergio Perez. This year, despite concerns about managing colder temperatures, the Monegasque driver remains confident about scoring significant points. Reflecting on Ferrari's competitiveness in Las Vegas last year, he expressed optimism for a similar performance, noting that while tire management had improved, the cold could still be a challenge as seen in the Brazilian Grand Prix. The Ferrari man conveyed optimism about achieving a strong result, emphasizing that the Maranello team has 2 weeks to prepare thoroughly for the event. Charles Leclerc therefore believes that the Las Vegas circuit suits Ferrari's car well, based on last year's performance. Although managing tires may prove difficult, he is hopeful for a successful race that could see Ferrari on the podium with both drivers, helping close the gap to McLaren in the Constructors Championship. While also aiming for a positive result in Abu Dhabi, he acknowledged that Qatar would likely pose greater challenges. But with only 3 races remaining, he affirmed that Ferrari's goal is to capitalize on each opportunity ahead. Now, however, consistency is needed for the Maranello team to secure first place in the constructors' standings. In other words, there can be no more slip-ups from either driver, as happened last Sunday with an underwhelming performance from Carlos Sainz, quite unlike what we saw a week ago. Paradoxically, Ferrari's best allies are its competitors. Red Bull, after all, continues to rely on a single frontrunner. Even in Brazil, Sergio Perez was inconsistent. However, it should be noted that if that single frontrunner is Max Verstappen, things could start to get really challenging. In short, asking for anything more than a second place is extremely difficult for the Italian side. In Las Vegas, however, the approach will need to change, and the possibilities, given the nature of the track, are all there. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz will have every opportunity to perform well and take the battle against McLaren and Red Bull to the final 2 rounds of the 2024 Formula One Championship in Qatar and Abu Dhabi.